for the hardest-hitting show in talk radio. The true progressive voice since 2012. This is Southpaws.
And welcome to Southpaws on the Pacifica Radio Network. We are the leaders of the revolution. My name is Darren Gibson, and I'm your co-host.
My name is Jack Prince, your fellow co-host this morning.
Yes, and Katy is off this week. She is actually in Indiana doing some work down there. Hopefully she's not going to be subjected to something that we talked about on last week's show. A friend of mine last week was telling me that women in southern Indiana might as well be viewed as women from Kentucky. Men feel they should be barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen. It was funny because Katy responded, "You don't want me pregnant or in your kitchen or barefoot." Yeah? Oh, so hopefully Katy will be rejoining us next week. We've got quite a few topics to talk about. We have some COVID stuff. We have some off-the-cuff stories, one involving the Trump Unity Bridge and an accident that it was involved in. So we'll get to those stories in just a moment here. Before we get started with today's show, a couple of reminders. You can follow us on social media by going to facebook.com/Southpaws Radio Show. You can follow us on Twitter at Southpaws Radio. You can follow us on Tumblr at southpawsradioshow.tumblr.com. You can follow us on YouTube by doing a search for Southpaws Radio. You can become a patron of the show by going to patreon.com/Southpaws Radio. You can listen to the show anytime you like at Spreaker, Stitcher, or Apple Podcasts by doing a search for Southpaws. Once you found our logo, you found us. We send links to our weekly episodes to our Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, and YouTube pages. You can listen to us on Global Community Radio Channel 1 every Saturday night at 11 Eastern. And you can listen to us on great Pacifica stations, including KCEI in Taos, New Mexico, KZGM in Kabul, Missouri, WOOL in Bellows Falls, Vermont, and KEPJ in San Antonio, Texas. Make sure you listen to us on your local Pacifica station. If your local Pacifica station is not carrying us, please call them and ask them to please take our show. Before we get started, I want to read a quote. This is something I want to start doing every week, a quote from a famous person. Today, I'm going to quote Thomas Paine when he said, "To argue with a man who has renounced the use and authority of reason and whose philosophy consists in holding humanity in contempt is like administering medicine to the dead or endeavoring to convert an atheist by Scripture." That's a pretty good one.
So fitting for the day.
Yes. Speaking of today, we are recording this show on Friday, September 24th, 2021. We woke up this morning to good news from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. The CDC director has signed off on booster shots for the Pfizer vaccine. So here's how it's going to work. If you are 65 or older, if you are 50 or older and you have underlying health conditions, if you're 18 to 49 and you have certain critical underlying conditions, or if you work in an industry that is considered essential, the grocery industry, food production, anything like that, if you got the Pfizer vaccine, you can get a booster shot 6 months after your second dose. And my mother, my 83-year-old mother, is actually looking at possibly getting her booster shot today.
That's great.
So I'm actually eligible next week. So we'll see how it goes.
And my right-wing friends, I don't know if I have any, but if I had any,
I jettisoned all
they
of mine.
will give you your original vaccination, even though you are brain damaged. That's not going to stop anything. Go in. They don't give you an IQ test. They don't give you anything except a life-saving vaccination. And like Howard Stern said, stop clogging up the life-saving hospitals with your idiocy.
Yep. And as a matter of fact, somebody else that is begging and pleading with people to go get vaccinated, to quit clogging up the ICUs and the emergency rooms, is somebody we usually don't run audio of or talk about on this show because she's a centrist. But Rachel Maddow, the other night on MSNBC, started talking about Alaska, which that state is now rationing health care. And this runs long. This runs about 7.5 minutes. We're going to go ahead and play this right now, folks. We might stop here and there just to kind of add a little commentary, but here's Rachel Maddow on MSNBC the other night talking about Alaska.
We are following breaking news tonight out of the great state of Alaska, where Alaska's Republican governor, Mike Dunleavy, has just announced that Alaska has now become the second state in the country to declare that all its hospitals statewide will now be shifting to crisis standards of care. What that means in English is that hospital care is now being rationed at hospitals in Alaska. In practical terms, that means that people who are less likely to survive get moved down the priority list in terms of whether or not they get an ICU bed, whether or not they get certain intensive forms of treatment and care. People less likely to survive will not get those resources. They will be moved down the line. Instead, in an effort to try to save as many human lives as possible, these hospitals now have permission and guidance to prioritize giving treatment to people who are more likely to live. And that is as bad as it sounds. It means that some people will just not be admitted to the hospital, even though they need to be hospitalized. Other people who might previously have been given curative treatment to cure them and save them, instead will just be given comfort care to try to make things easier for them. And it's a sort of anodyne phrase, crisis standards of care, but it is a terrible thing. And it is a thing that we really haven't confronted before as a country. Now we've got it in place, though, in one of Montana's major medical centers. They moved to crisis standards of care this week. We've also got it in every hospital in the state, in Idaho as of last week, and in every hospital in the state in Alaska as of tonight. And all of this, of course, is because of the huge influx of very sick COVID patients, swamping and effectively breaking the hospital systems in these states so that they can no longer provide care along the ethical and sort of technical guidelines that they've always followed. And it's not just COVID patients who are going to suffer from this rationing in these hospitals. It means everybody who needs to go to the hospital for any reason has reason to worry. The Idaho Statesman newspaper recently described this crisis standards of care system for Idaho as being like the whole state was being put on a DNR. The whole state was being given a do not resuscitate order, whether you wanted one or not. The Anchorage Daily News yesterday described what's been happening at Alaska's largest hospital in Anchorage, where they actually, as an individual hospital, started crisis standards of care before the whole state did tonight. The Anchorage Daily News reporting, quote, a triage team using a specific formula to prioritize patients most likely to recover has been asked to help with patient care decisions. In one decision, there were 4 patients who required a special kind of dialysis called continuous renal replacement therapy. 4 patients required that, but only 2 of the 4 could get it. Of the 2 patients who did not receive the therapy, one of them died. The other one survived, but remains hospitalized now in a palliative care setting, in a comfort care setting. Another decision at the hospital involved deciding which patient got intubated because there were not enough beds in the ICU. Another patient died at a rural Alaska hospital because they needed cardiac catheterization. They were, quote, waiting for a bed to free up so we could transfer them, said the hospital chief of staff. Again, that patient died. Providence, Alaska, the hospital that previously set up crisis standards of care, they set up a 3-person wellness team at the hospital to help their own doctors and nurses who are struggling with these kinds of decisions. Because imagine if you were a doctor or a nurse trained to provide trained to go to the most extreme end of the range possible to save the lives of your patients. And you're now in a situation where you're triaging people. You're not likely to make it. You're less likely to make it than these other people. So we're going to treat them, not you. I mean, the psychological effect that has on doctors and nurses in this circumstance cannot be overstated. And that has been the terrible situation this week already at Alaska's largest hospital, Providence, Alaska, in Anchorage. But now, tonight, the state's governor has announced that all hospitals in the state are moving to those same standards. And, you know, it may not just be Idaho and Alaska. Hospitals in Kentucky, hospitals in Montana, and several other states have reported that they are teetering on the brink of the same designation. But this announcement in Alaska tonight is new, and we have never, as a country, had multiple states rationing care like this simultaneously. We've just never had it. And forgive me for just putting this in personal terms for a second, but, you know, people say getting vaccinated or not is a personal decision, as if it only affects you. I hear that a lot explicitly, in particular on conservative media and from conservative politicians. It's a personal decision. It only affects you. Well, these dire circumstances we are now seeing in multiple states, unprecedented crisis standards of care statewide in 2 states in the country and in additional hospitals in other states, rationing of care so that people who would live with normal hospital standards are dying instead. I mean, these circumstances in multiple states now show that your personal decision whether or not to get vaccinated, it has really tangible consequences for a whole lot of other people who aren't you. I mean, to put it in blunt terms, the personal decision by someone in Alaska to not get vaccinated right now ultimately results in someone else dying in Anchorage because that person can't get the dialysis treatment that would save their life and that they'd otherwise be able to get if it weren't for the hospitals being overwhelmed by people who are sick specifically and only because they chose not to get the shot to protect them from COVID. I mean, they keep saying, you keep hearing it as this mantra on the right, even from people who ought to know better in the conservative media, that it's a personal decision, that it only affects you, that it doesn't affect people who aren't vaccinated. Well, tell that to the family of the person who just died in Anchorage because they couldn't get that form of dialysis they would otherwise be able to get because that hospital is overrun. And the standards that allowed that death to happen are now in place statewide in every hospital in Alaska and in every hospital in Idaho. And they're going into effect in other individual hospitals in other states now, too. That is because people are not getting vaccinated. Your decision whether or not to get vaccinated can be a life or death determining factor for somebody else who did get vaccinated but gets in a car wreck or needs dialysis or needs a heart catheterization procedure, something that they won't be able to get because of all the unvaccinated people filling up the hospitals. This is not complicated math. And it is not, it may be a personal decision, but it is a decision that has consequences way beyond your personal corporeal self. Okay, forgive me, I'm sorry, but the situation in Idaho and Alaska is a story of national significance. It needs a lot more attention than it's getting, and it should affect all of our thinking about how we are taking care of ourselves and our loved ones when it comes to keeping ourselves from getting COVID.
Well, Jack, there was Rachel Maddow from MSNBC the other night.
Yeah, it's to the point where it's blatantly killing people because of the ramifications of being stupid, of being stubborn, of ignoring science, ignoring the truth. Before it's a theory, it's an argument, right? It's a Thanksgiving argument. But now it's even the dumbest conservative should be able to extrapolate how the population in hospitals are killing patients. Do you think they could even see that? No. Is there a conspiracy theory for that? Are they maintaining the hospitals really are empty? I know for a while they tried that. Meanwhile, we have Christian right-wing idiots talking about veganism causing a satanic DNA change in human beings.
Jeez.
That's the kind of science they spend their mental acuity on. Think of it, really. Rather than sound medical proof that we have people dying needlessly now who are innocent bystanders. They didn't go in with COVID. They went in with an emergency heart condition, a blood clot in some cases, and they get turned away and they die. What did you say earlier this morning, Darren? 43 visits or 43 hospitals
there was
a
a
person
guy
tried to get into?
Alabama, 43 hospitals he tried to get into across 3 different states for cardiac problems, and he died. Mentioned it on last week's show. Mentioned the 12-year-old boy in Florida last week was having appendix problems. His appendix was irritated. He sat in the emergency room for hours. They finally transferred him to a second children's hospital that's a little more equipped to do this type of surgery, but by the time he got there, his appendix had ruptured, and he spent 5 days in the hospital. Folks, if your appendix ruptures and you do nothing about it, you will die.
You will, yeah.
Because your appendix is filled with nothing but toxins. And if that gets in through the rest of your intestines, stomach, whatever, kiss yourself goodbye if you don't get treated, and treated immediately.
Yeah, hey, listen, Repugs. You are being forced to look at basic 101 science. You're being forced to see the simplest equation of death because of your refusal. 5 times more Republicans are currently dying from COVID than Dems.
Yeah.
8,000 a day.
8,000 every 10 days.
I'm in a room that's been closed for months. We came in here to broadcast today. There's dead flies on the floor. Mm-hmm. You're dropping dead like flies. You're dropping 5 times more. Your pundits who have railed against the vaccination are dead as fried chicken today. They're done. They're gone. They're as dead as the flies under my feet. You're being faced with a simple, clear result of your stupidity and your willingness to spread falsehoods. You can't deny it. You have to look at it. You have to look at it. You have to rectify it. You need to change. You need to get on a soapbox and say you've been a dumbass, and it's time for you to urge people to get a vaccination. Some have. Who's the guy that retired from the Republican Party you told me about?
Oh, let me get to that. This is a story out of New Hampshire. This is Reed Wilson writing for The Hill. This is dated September 14th. A New Hampshire state representative said Tuesday he had formally left the Republican Party in protest of what he said was an emerging strain of anti-vaccination rhetoric coming from state house leaders. State Representative William Marsh, who's an ophthalmologist, who has won election to 4 terms in the state house, said he had met with the town clerk of Brookfield to change his registration to affiliate with Democrats. In a press release, Marsh wrote, quote, I have come to realize a majority of Republicans, both locally and in the New Hampshire House, hold values which no longer reflect traditional Republican values. And so I am recognizing the reality that today's Republican Party is no longer the party I first joined when campaigning for President Reagan many years ago. End of quote. No, if Reagan were to run today, he'd be thrown out of the party because It's become the party of Trump.
Become the party of wackos.
It has. Cuckoos. I've said that before. Cuckoos.
There's 2 lies out there that are lethal. The first lie is that there was voter fraud and that there was not a legitimate election. That's killing democracy. Mm-hmm. A high percentage, 70-some% of Republicans still think there was fraud involved in the last election. That is going to hit us back between the eyes in a matter of months because of that lie. The second lie, though, is one that's even closer, shorter term in its lethality, and that is that vaccinations put a chip up your butt, or vaccinations cause you to have a DNA change, or whatever crazy conspiracy thought. That's killing people as we talk. That's killing people right now.
That's literally killing people. Literally. Not hyperbole, not philosophically. No, literally dead. Dead. D-E-A-D. Dead. In the casket. Dead.
These are college-trained. Well, let's be honest. Michael Flynn is a retired high-level cabinet member, said that you're getting your really they're trying to sneak vaccination into your salad dressing.
Well, tell you what, we've got the audio clip right here. This is from the Thrive Time Show. It's a podcast. It's called Thrive Time Show Business School Without the BS. This runs about 40 seconds. Here's Michael Flynn in his own words, folks.
I got to put, somebody sent me a thing this morning where they're talking about putting the vaccine into salad dressing or salads. Have you seen this?
Yes.
Have you seen it? I mean, I'm thinking to myself, this is the bizarro world, right? This is definitely the bizarro world. So there's the seriousness of what this professional realized he was doing wrong, and he's now, he's found a new way. And then there's just the laughability on the other extreme that these people are seriously thinking about how to impose their will on us in our society, and it's
take away your freedom of choice.
Stop.
They know better.
Well, I tell you what, if you think that we're putting vaccines in your salad dressing, maybe you do need to do what you're told. Maybe you do need to be governed.
So how does that work at the salad bar?
Jesus
Darren?
Christ.
Thousand Island, would that be the Pfizer? And then local Italian would be Johnson & Johnson. How do you figure it out?
How would that show up on the, Burger Chef could have got away with this years ago when they had their Works and Salad Bar.
Yeah.
Wow.
Sure. Certainly. Then the local could be like birth control. Now,
vaccines in your salad dressing.
Did you notice Flynn said, somebody sent me this? That's been the Fox mantra for so long. It used to be, though, people say that eating salad dressing can cause vaccination ingestion. I mean, they use these journalistic connections that mean nothing.
You have to look at the phrasing that they use. Some people say, by the way, folks, if you have not watched the documentary Outfoxed, you absolutely, that is a must watch.
Yeah, that's a basic truth.
Because they lay it all out, and they've got the video to back it up. Some people say, well, Jack, there's some people that say.
Sure, there's always some people somewhere that say. It's 5 o'clock somewhere, right? But here's the thing, Darren. The journalism classes I took, and I know I didn't have nearly the exposure you had. You have a degree in journalism.
Yes, I do.
I took 3 or 4 journalism classes to try and get a permanent teaching certificate. The problem is, though, on Chapter 1, it's sourcing your material. You don't say anything without a source. You have the time, you have the place, you have the name. That is essential. This is not creative writing, folks. It's not a creative writing experience to be in journalism. It's called journalism for a reason. Journal means a record. You took a journal, you took a trip to Europe last year. On the 23rd, you had fries and mayonnaise in Europe, right? That's a journal. It's a record. You don't say, well, someplace in Europe, I ate a French fry. Somebody in France got me pregnant, right? Are you kidding me? You don't say, well, somebody sent me this horse crap. No, it's the complete basic violation of journalism these people depend on.
Next thing, there's going to be a story about a woman from France claiming that she got impregnated by a French fry.
Makes sense to me. Is that crazier than a satanic plot to create a new race by eating meatless burgers? Or a horse dewormers? Oh. You couldn't write this stuff.
No.
The Onion is retired, hasn't it? I mean, it has to.
No, I think the Onion's still in business, but man, they don't have to be creative writing anymore over there. They can just rip and read right off Associated Press.
Man. Incredible.
Or, well, not AP. Let's just give the credit where credit is due. Fox Propaganda Channel, Newsmax, OAN, the real wackos. Did you see Brian Williams the other night? Criticized Newsmax on air on MSNBC, called them, said, Newsmax, that's for those conservatives who think that Fox News is too liberal. That's a direct quote from Brian Williams.
Yeah, you never thought you would say anything like that, but it's totally true. And besides having no source information, you realize that they can find any wacko doctor they want to support whatever they want. So the recent appointment of DeSantis in Florida, he put a guy on the health department. I can't think of the actual position. I should have that to make this point. I'll agree with that. But the truth is, the guy was an absolute witch doctor. He was in the same genre. Remember the demon seed doctor that, that Trump was using? And so not only do they not even source the propaganda, if they need somebody to back them up, they get some disbanded doctor that believes in a demon. Honestly, that many people are. This is what this person said. As a doctor, are impregnated without sexual intercourse by demons.
Jeez. Hey, I gotta play this. You said witch doctor, so a little bit of David Seville. That's the guy in Florida, right there.
Oh, jeez.
Oh,
you don't even need material.
No, that's the sad part about it. Oh, my gosh. So I want to mention this story, too. This is Yelena Zanova writing for Business Insider. This is dated September 20th, and I know I butchered her last name. An Oregon doctor who falsely described carbon dioxide poisoning as a risk of wearing face masks has had his license revoked, and rightfully so. As of September 2nd, Stephen Arthur LaTulip was no longer allowed to practice, according to records from the Oregon Medical Board. LaTulip also received a $10,000 fine. Tiptoe through LaTulips. Yeah.
Right, gee.
An investigation conducted by the Oregon Medical Board found that LaTulip engaged in 8 instances of unprofessional or dishonorable conduct, 22 instances of negligence in the practice of medicine, and 5 instances of gross negligence in the practice of medicine.
Yeah. Well, hey, that's all you need. These are the kind of guys they can say on Fox News. A doctor in Idaho says, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you wanted to, you could get some doctor that would say, yes, lizard people are... No, I mean, that is a theory. And some guy wrote a book. So there is a doctor who's discovered archaeological proof that Biden is a lizard person. And you would have millions of people who would believe it. Because there's a doctor. Somebody said it. People are saying Biden is a lizard.
Jack.
And it's off and running.
Jack, when we were on a certain radio station in this town, we would come back from the break, and what was it that we had our announcer say? They may not be brain surgeons, but they are the doctors of talk radio. They're Darren Gibson and Jack Prince. You know what?
Yeah.
We could go right now, Jack, out to one of these stores that sells scrubs and doctor's coats. We could go and buy 2 white coats, have somebody sew our names on them and put doctor in front of it. Boom, we're a doctor.
Yeah. Well, that's like you want to be a Republican politician. You just need to take your money and buy 2 very simple things. An American flag for one lapel, and I support the troops for the other. And you're in.
Yeah.
You're in. You don't need cut taxes. That comes later. But your magic card to get in the door are 2 little lapel pins. That's all it takes.
And wear a chain on a cross. Or a cross on a chain, I should say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, here in Grand Rapids, you want to win the art prize? You want to? All you need is to paint a soldier in some fashion with his helmet in his hand and a cross behind it on the hill. Put it on a pop bottle top. Put it on a toilet paper roller. Just get that out there. It's going to win. Either that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's all you need. You get that combination in some sort of artistic fashion, you can count your prize money.
Oh, God. Yeah. We're worn out on art prize. We've been worn out on art prize for years. Yeah, the vanity project from the DeVos family. Continuing the story, a report relaying the investigation's findings said LaTulip's family practice, Southview Medical Arts, did not ask patients whether they had been in close contact with someone who exhibited COVID-19 symptoms or tested positive for the disease. The report said LaTulip had also asked his receptionist to screen people for COVID-19 by looking at their facial expressions rather than asking common screening questions.
That's magic, man.
According to the report, If the patient was smiling and happy, the receptionist was instructed to ask how the patient was feeling. If the patient indicated that they felt fine and they were not ill, the receptionist would direct the patient to sit in the waiting area before heading to an examination room. So, yeah, they could just read somebody's face and say, you got COVID.
Sure. That's what the police did out in Moab, Utah, when they had the guy that evidently killed his girlfriend. No proof of that, so I can only say charged or alleged. But he said, hey, everything's okay. They must have read his facial expression. Said, hey, fine, get in the van and take off.
Do you remember when Johnny Carson was the host of The Tonight Show, and he would have the little thing where he'd have the gimmick on his head, and he would take an index card and he'd hold it to his head?
Yeah, I do.
That'll be next for screening COVID. Well, am I that far off base?
No, what do you think when you try to homeschool a generation of kids that said the Bible was a science book? I mean, this is what we get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. By the way, we've been talking about the doctors and, education. Just remember that Rand Paul couldn't get board certified as an ophthalmologist. So what does he do? He formed his own certification board.
Sure.
And certified himself.
Exactly.
Brother.
You want to verify yourself, make a board you want to promote yourself, make an award, right?
Yep.
You want to back up some crazy scheme and perspective you have, pay off some scientists somewhere. I mean, they've done it with global warming, the Gulf and Shell. I mean, it's not hard.
Yeah, we mentioned a couple of weeks ago on the show, they did it with cigarette smoking as well.
Oh, heck yes.
Yeah. Neither LaTulip nor his wife, who ran the clinic with him, wore a mask from March to December of last year while treating patients, the investigation found. LaTulip was also found to have told patients they didn't have to wear a mask in the clinic unless they were acutely ill, coughing, or congested. Masks have been shown to reduce the spread of the coronavirus. Additionally, the report said LaTulip told older and pediatric patients that mask wearing was very dangerous for them and could exacerbate asthma or, quote, cause or contribute to multiple serious health conditions, end of quote, including strokes, collapsed lungs, and pneumonia. He also was said to have claimed mask wearing could lead to carbon dioxide poisoning, which is total bullshit. It doesn't happen, folks. If it did, every single doctor and every single nurse and every single hospital across this country would be dead of carbon dioxide. So I don't see a bunch of caskets in the hospital. I see a bunch of doctors and nurses and other health staff moving around.
Did you see where was it, in Texas, where a couple came in with a child that was immune challenged, whose immune system was challenged, and they ordered, and then the waitress came over and whispered in their ear, "You have to leave. You can't stay here."
Yeah, I heard about that story.
So,
yeah, but they did not have the child with them. They had gotten a babysitter for the night, but the thing is,
they didn't want to take it home.
They're out in public.
No. That's at the Hang Time Bar. So just imagine a day in a conservative. He gets up, he hears that if you eat a Impossible Burger, you've just ruined your DNA. Or if you get a vaccination, you've just ruined your DNA. If you wear a mask, you're poisoning yourself with carbon monoxide. You have to understand these board meetings that are being overrun now with these wackos here in this city. The Kent County, we live in Kent County.
Oh, God, we got to talk about this.
Take off on that. The director of the Kent County Health Department.
Yeah, Adam London.
Yep.
Dr. Adam London. After instituting a mask mandate for the public schools for the ages of children that can't get vaccinated, because right now, if you're 12 and older, you can get vaccinated. Children 5 to 11, they've finished the data for the Pfizer vaccine. They're expecting that to be approved maybe early, mid-November.
That's a lot of science you just spouted there, buddy. You don't have your white coat on. I'll run out and get. If you're going to go off like that, you need to have some credentials.
So, after he issued the mask mandate, he's driving home, and some woman tried to run him off the road. That's what he's claimed now.
Yeah, he's asking for help, asking for protection. Why not? Fauci gets threatened every minute, and his family.
Mm-hmm. You know, and the thing is, the Kent County Board of Commissioners, the Democrats, well, not all of them, I'll explain in a little bit, issued a letter in support of Dr. London and his efforts to try and stifle the coronavirus. I say not all of them, because guess who didn't sign?
Give me a clue.
She, up until she won the primary race, she was a Republican delegate, a seated Republican delegate to the party. Monica Sparks.
Yeah. Yep.
Where was Monica Sparks' signature? I mean, I'm not fond of any of the Democrats on the commission. Don't ask me about Phil Skaggs, because you'll get an hour's worth of this show. But really, where was her signature? Because she's really a Republican wearing Democratic clothing.
No question.
You know, I'll be controversial. Not like I wasn't controversial last week, but a week makes a lot of change. I'll be controversial. The Democratic Party, the people, the rank and file of the Democratic Party need to stand up. You need to purge the centrists, the conservatives, and the pro-lifers out. Purge them out. Get rid of them. You want to start leaning more to the left? You do those three things, you'll start leaning left more. You know, I could really go on a tear. Supposedly, allegedly, a former boss of mine once said in public that the Democratic Party needed to purge all the Christians out. You know who I'm talking about.
Well, hey, I would support that plan, 100%. The trouble is, who's going to close the door?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Who would be left?
Yeah. Pretty much. I mean, it wouldn't be me. I'm not a member anymore. I agree with a lot of the things.
Yeah, I would too.
But
and I'll vote 9 times out of 10. I'll never vote for a Republican, but I have voted for Democratic candidates because I'm trying to get another week of a democracy in this nation. But the problem is, when it comes down to big policy and directional change, the establishment Democratic wing, which is more than a wing, it's 2 feet and breastplate,
2 arms,
and head, and neck of the party dictate. They always have dictated. We're talking about Manchin earlier, you and I, with
Manchin, Kirsten Sinema.
You know, the party went and pushed their election campaign because they wanted to keep their power rather than adapt somebody with some principle that wouldn't be taking 3/4 of their campaign money from pharmacy companies out. Is she in Colorado? I can never remember.
No, she's in Arizona.
In Arizona.
Yeah, I believe she gets about 1/4 of her total campaign comes from the pharmaceutical company. They gave her $750,000 before they started running TV ads saying, "Oh, she's the greatest thing since sliced bread." You know.
Listen, the pharmaceutical industry made $50 billion profit. They can buy off a few rogue senators here and there. $50 billion. Who really controls the agenda and the direction of the Democratic Party? Dare I say that the money that went into her pocket affected her vote? Do I say that possibly all of the real leaders, pedestal, throw them in there as well?
Mm-hmm.
Know which side of the piece of bread is buttered in their favor from the corporations. This is a plague. This is a plague that we talked greatly about in 2016. Hasn't gone away. Has not gone away. Trump absolutely superseded all of the problems of the established Democratic Party that we pointed out because he was the end. That was the end of the day. We had to do something about. Now, though, as we're trying to make some legislative headway, and we see the ramification. I'm going to ask you, what is your take on AOC's dress that said "tax the rich"?
I didn't have a problem with it. Now, I know Katy does. We were going to talk about that, but we got so tied up with all the COVID stuff last week that we absolutely missed talking about it.
Isn't that foundational in a progressive plank? Isn't that absolutely foundational to tax rich people? What's wrong with that?
Not to speak for Katy, but I think her issue is she should be doing more talking about AOC. should not be milling around with rich people and should instead be writing legislation to tax these rich.
Okay.
Like I said,
how can you argue with that?
Like I said, I don't want to speak for Katy. We'll let her do that next week.
Who can argue with those points, all right?
Yeah.
I mean, I love Michael Moore. Michael Moore maybe has the most foundational documentary in history on violence in this country, as we see another shooting in Tennessee. It's called Bowling for Columbine. Absolutely won the best documentary in history, or at least at that time.
Yep.
It's unchallengeable. It's in-depth. It is catalog. You should get it out, folks, if you've never seen it. I showed my classes every year the documentary. But he lives in $1 million log cabin, so throw it the hell out. To get the documentary, throw it on the fireplace. Yeah. Right? I mean, I heard that. Hey, he's got an apartment in New York. He can't have any credibility. Bull crap. You may not want to have. I don't think it's maybe the right thing to do with your money to buy $1 million log cabin, but that doesn't ruin the truth inherent in his message. And put a dress on that says "tax the rich." I don't care. Foundation of the truth.
Mm-hmm. I wish it said "eat the rich."
Your underwear had that.
How do you know?
I'm just guessing.
I'm reminded of an old phrase. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. And I think a lot of people have forgotten that. You don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Best way of saying it. Some of these old cliches. You know, the baby here is that the rich don't pay any taxes. Mm-hmm. That's the baby. And I don't care who wears it on what flag they want to fly. It is crucial. It is a cornerstone policy of real progressivism.
Yep, it absolutely is. I just wish that we could get more progressives to say, look, we need to start taxing the hell out of that. I'm all for top-tier tax rate 92%, just like the 1950s.
Oh, yeah.
Because we funded everything that this
they don't pay
country's
any
done with
taxes. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
That's a great percentage, 92%.
Yeah.
Bezos and these boys, they don't pay any taxes.
You want to know how those businesses and how those rich people got out of paying 92%? Because they took the money that they would have pocketed in stock dividends, in profit, and they reinvested it in their businesses. When they bought equipment, that's a tax break. When they hired more people, tax break.
You don't have to go any farther than the Social Security Code, which says that at $112,000 you're taxed. The money is withdrawn and put into a fund that benefits all other people who are already retired. That's called a socialistic program. Maybe the greatest in American history, by the way.
Absolutely.
What's the difference between 112 and the hundreds of millions and billions of dollars made by, do I dare say, Bezos again? Or what's the difference? Do you know how much money that would be going into the coffers of Social Security? Do you realize how many hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars have never been placed into Social Security because they have a ridiculous cutoff tax level?
Yeah, there's a cap on it. I believe it's what?
I thought 112.
140,000, I think it's been up over the years.
For a while, it was in the 90s.
Yeah, they bump it up every so often. I think it's now 140.
Tax them.
Yeah.
Tax the rich, just in the Social Security. It would amount to hundreds of millions of dollars.
Eat the rich.
Tax the churches. Tax the churches. Tax them.
You know how we could end hunger? By taxing the churches right there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We could do a lot by taxing the rich
I got one for
and
you.
The churches.
Tax the stock market.
There you go.
How do you tax the stock market? Very, very simple. It's so simple. You pick up any stock market program in the world except the United States, and you'll see how they tax the stock market. It's just a percentage on each trade, each and every trade.
Gee, where have we heard that before? Bernie Sanders, maybe?
But it's no
maybe. It was Bernie.
Yeah.
Straight up.
You put these three together, taxing Social Security, raising that level, taxing the churches, taxing now. Don't get your cross out and come attacking me. The churches, because they have a harvest dinner. I used to love those harvest dinners. Went to a Methodist church as a young boy. I counted the days to the harvest dinner. All those farm wives brought those casseroles in. Couldn't wait, right? It was great.
Yeah.
They give some turkeys out at Christmas.
Yeah.
They take kids roller skating. The Catholic Church has a diner here in town. That's nothing. That's a drop in the bucket. The mafia used to hand out turkeys in November.
Yes, they actually did.
What you have to realize is that they don't do any good for the majority of people because they're worth millions and billions. Melt down some of the gold in the Vatican. Melt down and trade in some of the artworks. When you see these people from Haitian lined up, starving to death, dying of thirst. When you see in Africa, whole countries. I saw a picture today of a mile long of children with a bucket in their hand, a little pan for food, waiting for hours and hours just to survive. And the Catholic Church adorns itself with golden adornment. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely absurd. If there was a Christ, how could he look at that and say that's his church? How could you do that when supposedly the personage of Christ said, you want to follow me? Sell everything you got. But Catholic Church, my very church, Peter, my church I'll build on Peter. They claim that's the cornerstone there in Rome. You can have all the millions and billions of dollars of artwork you want. Absolutely absurd.
You had mentioned Haitians, and I know you want to talk about what's happening at the border. Did these border agents think that they were in the movie Django or something? What the hell? Whipping people trying to come into this country with the reins of their horses. By the way, they have now fired the horses.
You're kidding.
They're not allowed on horseback anymore. But now, apparently, I just saw this morning on the Today Show. The Mexican government is now blocking them from crossing the river going into the U.S.
Oh, are they really?
Yeah, I never thought I'd see the day.
Well, when you develop arms, munitions, and you send them to every country in the world, right? You don't send them, you sell them. The blowback comes back at you. It's that simple.
How much did we interfere in Haiti over the last 100 years?
Well, we hated Haiti. We hated Haiti because, you know why? They declared independence from the chattel slavery.
Yeah. And speaking of, well, Tulsi Gabbard almost got douchebag of the week this week. Almost. Did you hear her latest? Now she's blaming Biden for what's happening at the border.
Oh, I'm not surprised. Heck yes.
She's sounding
Abbott,
more and more like a Republican, like a violent conservative. First it was the Islamists are waging war, which, no, that's the radicals. Just like you have radicals on the right, and radicals on the left, and radicals everywhere, no matter how you divvy it up.
Well, Darren Gibson was smart enough to spot the, how do I say this, the conservative traits inherent in the Gabbard platform, including her homophobic legislation that nobody want to talk about. But she's a veteran. She's a woman, and she's attractive, and she leans liberal.
Yeah.
We don't want to go too far in that direction. We got bigger fish right here. Contemporary speaking, one of them that I just want to mention real quickly, the book called Peril. I urge you to get it, folks.
Bob Woodward's new book.
Yeah, I'm on my way to the bookstore today. Later on today, me and my girlfriend are going to ride over and buy that book. It's been on the news because it comes right out. I think Trump has sued the he
sued the New York Times and his niece.
Yeah.
By the way, Mary Trump's got a great book. You need to read that too.
But we're all in peril. Mm-hmm. We're in peril of the many Republicans out there negating the next election.
Exactly.
We're in trouble of you going into a store with a mask on and being accosted. And I'm not exaggerating.
Well, I got a story. I'm not going to mention any names, but a friend of ours was at a truck stop over on the other side of the state, gassing up his rig, and some guy got out of his truck and started coughing right behind him. If that guy knew how close he was to ending up in the morgue.
Yeah.
Because I tell you what.
Is that wrong to, if somebody's killing you with that kind of, to take that kind of reaction to say, hey, I'm going to save my life if I have to kill you? Is that, I mean, theoretically?
No, because tell you what, state of Michigan has a stand your ground law when it comes to being attacked. Stand your ground. Michigan calls it castle doctrine. Man's home is his castle, but that applies everywhere. You don't have to retreat if somebody is attacking you. You have the right, if somebody is stabbing you, to pull your gun and smoke them.
Darren, personal story sometimes has a lot of impact. I want to give you a personal story. The governor of South Dakota, who's a total nut, right?
Yeah, Christy Noem.
The Sturgis sweetheart.
Multiple douchebag of the week winner.
Yeah. In her state, which I traveled through just a few days ago, I had a terrible incident. A travel trailer that I purchased burnt completely, just burnt. So as I went back to try and pay the exorbitant towing bill of the carcass of my trailer, I discovered a huge 4-figure for towing a 10-mile long distance. I'm not going to tell you how much, but it was crazy.
It was over $1,000.
Yeah, way over. For 10 miles. I said, well, wait a minute. That seems a little exorbitant. I called around. People here in this state said that 10-mile haul for that, and it wasn't on fire. It was just a couple of wheels. A couple $100. So I said, all right, well, I'm going to pursue this farther. I'll go and find out what the state-mandated, codified limits for towing, because I know they have them here in Michigan. I know they have them in Ohio. I know they have them in Indiana. I know they have them in Illinois. But in a conservative-led state like South Dakota, they have no protection. You're driving through, and you have a breakdown, and you have to have a tow job. They can charge you anything they want. They can say we have a midnight charge of $800. We can do whatever we want because there's no regulation. A regulation like putting a mask on your face, which she also is against. There's no protection for the consumer. There's no state control of the population in private business. They can do whatever they want. Yeah. That's the difference. In this state, we realize that is a vulnerable area. People get broken down. A towing charge, you come out in the middle of a snowstorm. How much? Name the price, because it's either you stay here and freeze or we tow you. What do you do? That's the type of world that Abbott and DeSantis and whatever her name is.
Death sentence. Christy Noem.
That's what they're bringing.
Violent conservatives. Greedy, evil, violent conservative savages.
We're in peril. We're in real peril. And if you're a woman in Texas, let me tell you, you're in peril.
Yep. Jack, we're starting to run a little low on time. We have a couple of stories that we're not going to have time to get to. The first one, we're going to have these stories on our official Facebook page. Go to facebook.com/Southpaws Radio Show to read these. We have one story from Brooke Lee Howard from the Daily Beast. The headline is, Anti-Mask Florida Official Dies of COVID and Takes GOP Software Secrets with Him. This guy was an official with the Hillsborough County Election Integrity Committee. He was the only guy that had access to the passwords for the software to file Federal Election Commission's report to the U.S. government, and now they can't get into it.
Gee.
So there's that one. Another story from Kimiko de Frevtas Tamura, writing for the New York Times, dated September 18th. Footage reveals new details in tourist melee at New York City restaurant. If you haven't seen this, 3 women from Texas have been arrested. They're out on bail right now for assaulting, allegedly, but they got them on video, beating up a hostess at a restaurant. The 3 are now claiming that the hostess said something racist toward them.
Oh, that's justified then. Sure.
Bullshit. I don't believe it.
I don't either.
Sorry. Don't believe it. So there's that story as well. And then we got to get to our off the cuff because we got a couple of great ones here. The first one is Winter Kiefer and Isaac Ritchie writing for the Flint Journal. There were no major injuries in a 3-vehicle crash Wednesday afternoon in Flint that included an ambulance hauling the Trump Unity Bridge.
Unity Bridge.
Yes, the Trump Unity Bridge, it's got signs all over it that say, build the wall, all lives matter, make America great again, crashed. Supposedly the driver of the ambulance, Rob Cordes, who owns the bridge, he apparently was driving back to his home in Livonia from Gaylord. He took the Unity Bridge to an event opposing high school mask mandates.
There you go.
Supposedly, another driver ran a red light. He had the green. He tried to avoid it, hit the other car, spun, and hit a utility pole. So,
could you get a better symbolic portent than that?
Yeah.
Trump crashing.
Yep. The second one is an audio clip. This is a Walmart employee in Louisiana rage quitting. This is absolutely beautiful. Folks, I was going to just talk about it, but you need to hear it. Take a listen.
Attention Walmart shoppers and associates. My name is Beth from Electronics. I've been working at Walmart for almost 5 years, and I can say that everyone here is overworked and underpaid. The attendance policy is bullshit. We are treated from management and customers poorly every day. Whenever we have a problem with it, we're told that we're replaceable. I'm tired of the constant gaslighting. This company treats their elderly associates like shit. To Jared, our store manager, you're a pervert. Greta and Kathy, shame on y'all for treating your associates the way you do. I hope you don't speak to your families the way you speak to us. Shout out to Cominique, Patty, Chardell, and so many more. Walmart doesn't deserve y'all. Manage it and this job. I quit.
There you go. Wasn't that great? Here's what I think of it. Absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
I see the guy with the big, thick glasses in Office Space.
Yeah. Where's my stapler? Where is my stapler? I love that movie. And speaking of business, did you see Dick's Drive-In in Seattle, Washington has now raised their starting minimum wage, $19 an hour. And it goes up to $20 once you complete your training.
And their burgers are $1.80.
$1.80 for a plain hamburger.
Remember, if you raise that price, it's going to be $4 for a Big Mac. Come on.
It can be done, folks. Last off-the-cuff story today. Hannah Toy writes this for Business Insider, dated September 22nd. Brook Charter Schools in Boston was forced to hire a party bus to transport high schoolers to a field trip on Friday due to the bus driver shortage. That's according to a viral tweet posted by English teacher Jim Mayers that has since been deleted. Deluxe Limousine, the party bus company hired to drive the students, told Insider this was the first time it had been contracted by a school. The 50-person motor coach was fully equipped with a stripper pole, show lights, a bar, and top-of-the-line sound system.
That'll get the kids to school.
The owner of Deluxe Limousine said, quote, "We were booked one day before by the high school. I suppose they couldn't find anything else available. Maybe that's why the party bus company was the last chance to move these kids." End of quote. He added that his party bus drivers make $30 to $35 an hour, so that's a lot higher than what the actual bus drivers make in the Boston area. They run about $20 an hour, just under 20. By the way, the charter school declined to comment on the story from Business Insider.
That's too good.
Oh, good Lord. Well, folks, we are out of time for this week. We'll be back next week if we don't get on the stripper pole first. I'm Darren Gibson.
And Jack Prince.
For Katy Steele and Kristen Cook, please support independent media and the First Amendment.
The stations that carry Southpaws do not necessarily share the opinions expressed on the show. Southpaws is protected by the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution and is copyrighted by Big D Entertainment. All rights reserved.